Welcome to the UK Crime Book Club Pub Quiz, just not in a pub. And this time, spread across the globe. Yes, luckily enough to be joined by an international guest today, as well as someone playing for the home nation. It's got a bit of a Commonwealth Games feel to it because we've got Trevor joining us all the way from Canada and David representing New Zealand, but sitting in Scotland. So, yeah, we seem to have covered all the bases, hosted here in England as well. So, yes, thank you for joining me this evening. If it's your first time joining us, I will run through the rules of the quiz shortly. But first of all, I'd like to introduce to you my two fantastic guests. On my right is David Bishop, who writes under the name DV Bishop. His forte is historical novels. You may remember him from I'm going to hope that I pronounce these correctly, so bear with me, David. I just want to get my pronunciations right. Is it the wrong one? Cesare Aldo series? Is that how I'm pronouncing it right?
Cesare.
See, I knew I'd get it wrong. And tell us a little bit about yourself, David. Your quizzing background. How are you feeling this evening?
Quietly anxious. I do love a quiz, but I can get over competitive, so I try not to do them too often. But I did do. They had a Criminal Mastermind at Crime Fest in Bristol this year, and I was pleasantly surprised that I won Criminal Mastermind. Yes, we'll see how it goes tonight. I make no promises.
Nobody told me this, Ben. Nobody told me.
And on my left, I can see looking a little bit sweaty, and now it's Trevor Wood, who's joining us all the way from Canada this evening, or this afternoon, as it is in Trevor's case. Trevor, thank you so much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, you probably know Trevor from his Newcastle-based crime thriller series. So, Trevor, tell me a little bit about yourself and your quizzing background, because I believe you're quite competitive as well, aren't you?
I am. Which is why I don't do quizzes much anymore, because my memory's shot away. So I used to be pretty good, but these days I really am. It was the guy with the hair from Scotland kind of answers. So I might be a bit vague. Let's put it that way.
Excellent. Well, we've got we're quite open on the way we mark our scores today. So vagaries can work. Sometimes vagaries help, especially with some of the rounds that we do in this quiz. So for new people who are joining us today, I'll just quickly run through the rules. We've got 5 rounds of 5 questions. There are varying points available for each question. I will explain that to you all as we go on. At the end of each round, we will go through the answers with my guests on screen here. You are marking all your questions yourselves at home and the 2 guests alongside me. There's no shouting out in the chats or in the video feed, guys. It's a case of writing it down on pen and paper, on your laptops, on your stone tablet, whatever you've got to hand, whatever works best for you. No cheating is allowed in the quiz. And with that in mind, I'm just going to make a quick note to Miss Donna Morfitt after shall we call it, admission on Twitter that she's been cheating recently, that she'll be starting on -10 this week, Donna. I expect nothing but a perfect score as well afterwards. So that's -10 for Donna, everybody. Right, is everybody ready?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Shall we crack on with the first round? Excellent stuff. Well, the first round, as ever in the UK Crime Book Club Pub Quiz, is books. What sort of a book club pub quiz would we be without a round on books? As usual, there'll be a couple of questions that will come from this month's newsletter. And there'll be a couple of questions that hopefully our authors will be able to guide you with as well. We shall begin with question number 1, however, which is, which game show host turned author announced a new series of novels that will be Thursday Murder Club meets the Da Vinci Code? And some confident looking faces on the screen, which is always good. I think I've learned that we need to get the first question relatively easy to make people feel at home. Question 1 again, in case you missed it. Which game show host turned author announced a new series of novels that will be Thursday Murder Club meets the Da Vinci Code? Question number 2. And for those of you who read the newsletter, don't shout out in the chat, whoever did that. Someone delete that. Rough What is the title of the new book by Gillian Gooden? Rough What is the title of the new book by Gillian Gooden? question number 3. Set in Florence in 1537, The Darkest Sin is the latest novel from which author? Question 3 again. Set in Florence in 1537, The Darkest Sin is the latest novel from which author? I'm expecting a 5 out of 5 from everyone from this round today. Out today, question 4. Out today, the debut novel in the D.I. Shazia Khan series by Gordon Smart features a rendezvous with what or whom? Maybe both. Question 4 again. Out today, the debut novel in the D.I. Shazia Khan series by Gordon Smart features a rendezvous with what or whom or both? That's a big gold clue there. And finally, Dead End Street, due out this September in paperback, is the 3rd and final book in the Newcastle-based crime series by which author? And that's question 5 again. Dead End Street, due out this September in paperback, is the 3rd and final book in the Newcastle-based crime series by which author? Now, well, people who are just finishing off there, let's talk a little bit about your backgrounds, gentlemen. For those who don't know much about you both, there's a couple of similarities between you here tonight. When I've been doing my research on you, you were both journalists. You've both written in different formats as well, so not just the novels. Trevor, I'll start with you. It all began in the Navy for you, your writing career, didn't it?
Yeah, sort of. I joined the Navy when I was 18 as a writer, which isn't quite as glamorous as it sounds. It's like a combination of human resources, finance, and accounting, really, and admin. So
you're not there making up sea shanties?
No, sadly. So yeah, I was a writer from the age of 18, but not the kind of writer I am these days.
And from there, I believe it was into playwrights and.
Yeah, when I left the Navy, I retrained as a journalist. I worked as a journalist for about 6 or 7 years. And one of the guys who I trained with somehow persuaded me to try and write something with him. I've no idea why he thought we could do it. But we sat down and wrote a play in the January of 2002, and it was on stage in the June of 2002, and we never looked back, really. Our second play was a huge hit, and we wrote about a dozen plays in the end.
Amazing stuff. And then it was a short step into the novels, wasn't it?
Yeah. After about a dozen plays, it was getting pretty hard to get plays on. Most theatres are local authority run, and they had better things to spend money on, so they weren't putting many new plays on because it's an expensive business. And we were having to produce them ourselves, and I was spending a lot of time not writing. I was spending a lot of time, a bit like being a self-published author, spending too much time working on publicity and on admin and all kinds of stuff. So I thought I'd try something different. So I sat down and wrote my first crime novel, The Man on the Street.
Excellent stuff. And David, you also began in journalism, but moved out of it relatively quickly into other areas away from the press as such, into comics and things like that, wasn't it?
Yes, I'm from New Zealand originally, hence the accent. And I was a daily newspaper journalist for about 5 years in New Zealand and emigrated to the UK in 1990, so a long time ago now. And fell in with a bad crowd. I became a comics editor and edited Judge Dredd in 2000 AD for about the next 10, 11 years. And then went freelance after that. I'd already been doing some writing of comics and tie-in novels, and then I did a lot more of that when I went freelance. And then all sorts, wrote for telly, wrote for doctors on BBC One, radio plays for the BBC when they still commissioned radio plays in the good old days, which they hardly do anymore now, which is a great sadness. And yeah, you name it, I've probably had a crack at it at this point, yes.
I saw you'd written for Games Workshop, which when I was a teenager, I'm sure I must have read some of your stuff. I played a lot of Games Workshop back in the day, Warhammer 40,000, had a monthly subscription to White Dwarf magazine, so I'm sure I must have come across your work back then at some point. That was something I picked up on in the chat. What sort of things were you doing there for Games Workshop?
I did 2 Warhammer novels, which is their fantasy series. So I did, the first novel I did was called A Murder in Marienburg, basically, I've always wanted to write Hill Street Blues, is what it boils down to. That's like one of the seminal television experiences of my life. So I wrote essentially Hill Street Blues in the Warhammer universe, which was just like police procedural with the occasional elf or Skaven wandering past in the back.
I have got to get. I did not know that, and that is definitely going in my TBR pile. That sounds absolutely good. Brilliant.
You'll pay a pretty penny because they've never been available as ebooks. They've never been reprinted, and I still haven't cleared my advance because the royalties are so bad at Games Workshop.
We'll say no more about that. I'll have to order a few more Space Marines and so forth to bump their coffers up for you. Right, we'll have a quick look at the answers, shall we, gentlemen? Thank you very much for that there. Question number 1. So, which game show host turned author announced his new series of novels? Did anyone know who that might be?
Well, I'm assuming it's Richard Osman. Yeah,
it was indeed. He's a wonderful question to have on here because he does a lot of things. He's quite relevant and he always seems to be doing something. So he tends to crop up a lot in the quiz. Question 2. Did anyone know what rough was in the title of the new book by Gillian Gooden?
Well, thanks to Sam telling me to read the newsletter about 15 minutes ago. I think it's Diamonds.
It is indeed Rough Diamonds by Gillian Gooden. Question 3.
I subscribed to the newsletter and it didn't turn up, so I didn't know.
Check your junk filter. Set in Florence in 1537, The Darkest Sin was by whom?
I'm going to guess it's David. That's my.
I do love this round because you get to see people's poker faces when they get the question about themselves. So yes, I'll be playing poker against you, David, at some point. You had a little tell there. Question 4. Oh God, yeah, there's a massive tell over your shoulder. Question 4. Out today, the debut novel in the D.I. Shazia Khan series by Gordon Smart featured a rendezvous with what or whom or both?
Again, thanks to Sam. It's Death.
It is Death, yes. Oh, yeah. Death being a what or a whom. So both, yeah. Rendezvous with Death is the new novel from Gordon Smart. And finally, Dead End Street, due out this September in paperback. Third and final book in the Newcastle-based crime series by which author? Is that man? David's got that's it. I had to think which way the finger was supposed to go. Yes, it's Trevor. Gents, let's talk a little bit about your books. We'll start with you, David. Tell us all about The Darkest Sin.
Sure. So it's a historical thriller set in Renaissance Florence, and it features my detective, whose name is Cesare Aldo, and he's an officer of the Alto, which is the most feared criminal court in the city. He's sent to investigate reports of an intruder at a convent, but he very quickly discovers a body in the scriptorium of the convent, which has been stabbed 27 times and is covered in blood and is naked. And somewhat unusually in a convent is the body of a man. So as a consequence, the nuns have got quite a bit of explaining to do. So essentially, it's a locked room mystery set in a convent, which I wrote during 2020, almost entirely during lockdown, although I decided the plot long before anybody had heard of COVID. So I had no problems getting into the mindset of the nuns locked away in their convent, because that's what we were all doing for the whole year I was writing it.
Excellent stuff. And Trevor, Dead End Street, it's the third and final book in the series, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about that.
It's the return of Jimmy Mullen, my homeless protagonist, and his two friends, Gadge and Dino. Jimmy's trying to keep his nose clean. He's got a job. He's got somewhere to live now. But his friend Gadge is concerned that a group of right-wing vigilantes are beating up homeless men on the streets and wants to try and do something to stop them. Jimmy tries to keep out of it, but when Gadge is in quite a similar storyline to David, by the sound of it, when Gadge is found unconscious in an alley with a dead body next to him and he's covered in the guy's blood and he's got a baseball bat in his hand, Jimmy starts to get involved to try and clear Gadge's name.
Excellent stuff. And that's out in September in paper. Is it out now in ebook?
It's been out in hardback and ebook since March. So yeah, September is the paperback.
Excellent stuff. Both are available now. Right, that is the end of round 1 there. So we shall move on to round 2, which this month is Commonwealth Games. Now, I did did have a slight idea about maybe making you guys run around and do different sports like on campus or something. I thought that might be a little bit unfair and everyone might not go down so well, especially for the viewers at home who want to play along as well. How could we possibly mark down people's scores there? So I'm afraid we've just got questions about the Commonwealth Games and so forth. So no sporting prowess on there to win your points today, I'm afraid. So we shall begin round 2 with question number 1. How many nations are in the Commonwealth? Now, you guys, between the two of you, can at least think of 3.
This is not going to go well.
One again. How many nations are in the Commonwealth? And that leads very nicely into question number 2, which is a slightly different question, which kind of sounds the same. How many nations are competing in the Commonwealth Games?
Oh, okay.
Which is not the same answer. No, Donna, it's nothing to do with the fact that I have to demonstrate the rounds. No, I didn't think of that. I thought I could just talk people into doing sport on the screen. No, it's true. My exercise is not the best. Think of a random number is probably excellent advice. We'll ask that second question again. How many nations are competing in the Commonwealth Games? Question number 3. I hope you have been watching the games. What is the name of the bull mascot for this year's Commonwealth Games in Birmingham? And if you've seen the games, you might have seen him running around. I was there this morning, watched him be hoisted across the stadium on a zip wire. My 5-year-old daughter was very worried that he was going to fall to his death, and then said he had fallen to his death, which he hadn't. It was absolutely fine, but he's fallen. Just landed. I hear typing. No one's cheating, are they?
I was answering a question in the chat room.
Name of the mascot for this year's 2022 Commonwealth Games in Birmingham. He's a bull. If that helps, it probably doesn't. Donna says that you've been avoiding a Trevor.
I heard a reputation she was a bit of a cheat, so I thought.
Her self-confessed reputation, no less. Question number 3. Which city was originally set to host this year's games before Birmingham stepped in?
Sorry, is this question 3 or question 4?
Question number 4. Did I say 3? Yeah.
Yes.
Question 4.
This is going really well, Ben. This.
I thought everyone would be glued to the games. It's just me, isn't it? It's just me.
Next, you'll be telling me Ukraine's not in the Commonwealth.
I literally wrote down Kiev and then crossed it out and thought, no, that's not right.
I mean, let's face it. If Boris thought it might save his job, I'm sure he'd be knocking on Lizzie's door asking her to let them in. Question 4 again. Which city was originally set to host the games? And question 5. Where is the 2026 edition of the Commonwealth Games to be held?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I knew you were going to groan at that one. Sam didn't even know the Commonwealth Games were on, which is a good start. I mean, that is quite an impressive rock you've been living under there, Sam. Obviously, you don't need to be paying your licence. You've not been watching anything on the BBC this last week. The last question again, before we can end the suffering for everyone involved in this round, is where are the 2026 games to be held? Now let's talk about sporting prowess, shall we, David? You had a little bit of a basketball career, didn't you? Did it go well?
No. I was captain of the first 5 basketball team at my high school, which tells you how bad the basketball team was, because I'm only 5'9.5" on a good day. And we played in the Auckland City League against all the other Catholic schools, because I went to a Catholic school. We struggled to get five players just on the court, and most teams will have 10 players, so you can substitute the entire team off if you want in basketball at any moment. There's no rules about who goes on, and well, there are, but not like that. And we would, if we got 5 people to the game, that was a good start for us. So I think we were the most popular team to play in the league because you could be guaranteed A, an easy win, and B, some basketball practice because we'd be running around and there'd be these tree trunks standing around us. It was like playing Ents or something. It was horrific. Yeah, we did win 1 match, but that was only because the other team didn't turn up in uniform and they got defaulted.
A win's a win. A win is a win. We could
that was
never knock it.
Moment. They didn't bring the right tops.
Brilliant. Trevor, the name of your cricket team, the Mallards, inspires similar levels of confidence due to its correlation with ducks.
Yeah, that's where we got our name from. We've got there's an old scorecard of an early game for the team that has like 9 people with 0 on it. They changed
Were you
their
one
name.
of those 9, or were you?
I was not. I didn't play then. Obviously.
And you also play for the England team in the bloody Scotland Crime Festival matchup. How's that been going for you recently?
I do. Well, I've only been to bloody Scotland once, just before lockdown, I guess. So I played in that game, and we beat the Scots 3-0. And there hasn't been a game since then because of lockdown. So this year is the rematch, defending our trophy, and I'm in the squad again, despite my advanced age. But hopefully we'll keep the trophy.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping to get my call up to the Scotland team for 2023, and I'm making sure that trophy stays north of the border. That goes without saying. Yeah,
it's quite competitive. Like it is quite a fierce game.
Well, I think you said it made the front page of the Scottish Sunday
Times.
Well,
obviously, because that was my first game, I didn't really know the history, but apparently a previous game had been a bit feisty. And Craig Robertson wrote a big article that got in the national press in Scotland saying about how the English were cheats and, we played a ringer and all this kind of stuff. So
I can believe all of these allegations.
So when we beat them 3-0, the Sunday Times actually covered it and they put a report in.
Excellent stuff. Well, yeah, like I said, I'm going to make sure that finish a book soon, and I'll be in the squad soon. I'll be in the squad for the task.
I don't. You just have to be there. I don't even think you need a book. I think that's part of the difficulty.
Well, you might see me there this year then. So let's have because you're both quite competitive. Let's have a quick look at the scores at the end of this round, but we'll do the answers first. So how many nations did we guess might be in the Commonwealth?
I said 112. I have no idea.
Not quite.
I said 66.
That was closer. It's actually 56, although I did find one source that said 54, so I might have to accept 54. Though.
Can I point out, Ben, that 112 is exactly twice that number? I think I should get some kind of.
Well, I mean, it's a good argument. It's fallen on deaf ears, I'm afraid.
I thought they all competed twice. I misunderstood the. I'm sorry.
You were thinking of the para games as well. You were putting the two together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was just the nations in the Commonwealth.
Oh,
the
yeah.
nations competing in the Commonwealth was question 2. And how many did we think competed in the Commonwealth?
Well, it's not what I wrote down, but I've just changed my answer to 42.
42.
And I thought it would be higher than the number of nations in the Commonwealth, which makes no sense in retrospect. So I said 59.
Well, I mean, it is higher than the number of nations in the Commonwealth, which makes no sense. It's 72, and I believe this is because it includes states such as, for the purpose of the Commonwealth, the United Kingdom is classed as one, but then you break it down to the Isle of Man, Jersey, Guernsey, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, England, and I believe there are a few other states that are broken down in similar ways. So the actual answer, the number of nations competing at the Commonwealth Games, is 72. So you weren't far off there. It was good logic.
Do you want to believe me that that's what I had written down before I changed it when I thought it had to be smaller?
Did you genuinely?
No.
Okay. The name of the mascot. And if anyone knows,
I've just said
the game
Brummy.
is being held in the area of Perry Bar, so the mascot is called
really?
Perry.
Jesus.
No, I guess Brummy as well. Brummy the bull.
Yeah, that was my guess.
The city originally set to host the games?
Complete guess.
Melbourne, but I don't.
I actually wrote Melbourne and then crossed it out and wrote Auckland.
It was Southern Hemisphere. but it was the other of the three big Southern Hemisphere sporting states. It was South Africa. It was Durban.
Oh man!
And staying Southern Hemisphere for 2026 games. Anyone have a guess?
I put Joburg. I don't know if it was supposed to be Durban. I doubt it's Joburg next time.
It was Victoria.
I was guessing
Victoria
Canada,
State
so
in Australia is the answer.
Oh well, that went well.
There we go. That went well, didn't it? Let's check in on the scores. So I'm guessing they're probably the same as at the end of the first round, yeah, guys?
Yeah.
Yep.
What have we got? What have we got on the scoreboard at the moment?
I'm on 4 out of 10.
4 out of 10. That's not bad for this quiz.
And I've got 5, I think.
5, excellent stuff. So yeah, we're still, still going strong there. Right, the next round. And for those of you who are new to this quiz, I will explain this one in depth. This is Bookmanto. I can hear Sam cheering from here. This is the round where we take two separate books, and mash them together to create a super book. What I'm gonna do is read you the new title of the new book, which contains elements of both the first two books, as well as a blurb for the new book, which contains elements of the first two books. And then I'm going to ask you to give me the authors of the original books.
Oh, Jesus.
Does that make sense? There's a lot of thumbs up around there. It's not as bad as it sounds. It's not as bad as it sounds. Right then. It is as bad as it sounds. Right then. Question number 1. So I've got two books that I've mashed together. The Midnight Evensong. When Daniel Clement announces plans to install a lavatory in church, divisions rise and bodies pile up as Jack Reacher arrives in town on a quest for vengeance. Which two authors have I stolen from there to make a new book? The Midnight Evensong. I'll repeat that again. The Midnight Evensong. When Daniel Clement announces plans to install a lavatory in church, divisions rise and bodies pile up as Jack Reacher arrives in town on a quest for vengeance. Which two authors are there? There's a point for each, so you can get 10 points in this round. Question number 2. A Good Girl's Guide to the Dome. When an invisible force field cuts off a town in New England, Pippa chooses to investigate a long-solved murder for her final project. Which two authors have I stolen from there? Now, I've tried to make sure at least one of the books is a crime book, and a relatively recent crime book, apart from the last one, where I ran out of crime books. Question 2 again. A Good Girl's Guide to the Dome. When an invisible force field cuts off a town in New England, Pippa chooses to investigate a long-solved murder for a final project. Which two authors have I borrowed heavily from there to create a masterpiece? Question 3. Eleanor Oliphant had it coming. Eleanor Oliphant has a strictly ordered life, but when she is called to the scene of an attempted murder, she recognizes the victim as someone who ruined her life. Which two authors have been borrowed from there? Eleanor Oliphant had it coming. Eleanor Oliphant has a strictly ordered life, but when she is called to the scene of an attempted murder, she recognizes the victim as someone who ruined her life. Question number 4. Good cop, bad dog. Undercover cop Chris Sketty becomes a hero when he almost died trying to stop a terrorist attack, and now verges on dangerous obsession as he pursues an unstoppable cartel. See that last one again. Good cop, bad dog. Undercover cop Chris Sketty becomes a hero when he almost died trying to stop a terrorist attack, and now verges on dangerous obsession as he pursues an unstoppable cartel.
Can we go back to the Commonwealth Games now?
And finally, number 5, Project Hail the King. Ryland Grace is the sole survivor of a desperate mission to save Earth by throwing an enchanted ring into Mount Doom. Question 5 again. Project Hail the King. Ryland Grace is the sole survivor of a desperate mission to save Earth by throwing an enchanted ring into Mount Doom.
Jesus.
Now,
What's most annoying, you've listened to the author in question on a podcast for an hour and you still can't remember their bloody.
Yeah.
That is that must be frustrating. Gents, if I were to ask you who you would like to do a collaboration with, who would it be? What author would you most love to sit down and create something special with?
Whoa.
I mean, I'll say Stephen King. For the sales, frankly.
It's a good start.
And
he's bound to have an idea kicking around somewhere.
I've read an awful lot of Stephen King in my time. He doesn't strike me as that much of a. He has collaborated a few times, but not very often. Plus, free trip to Maine. That's not bad.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. It's a nice neck of the woods, isn't it? Supposedly. Trevor, what about you?
I'd quite like to do something with Vaz Khan. I think that would mainly because it would be just so entertaining. He's such a funny, nice guy.
Yeah. I think that's got to be part of the collaborative process, isn't it? You've got to be able to sit down and spend time with that person.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
enjoy their company. Because if you don't, then it's not going to go well, is it? So that's definitely got to be something to bear in mind. Shall we have a look at the answers there? And I've got a feeling you've both got 10 out of 10 here. I could see some very confident faces.
Yeah, that hasn't happened.
No.
This is the round usually where Sam does really well in the chat, so I'm expecting her to get a high score in this as well. Sam says, if I say I want to write with Ben Bruce, can I have some points? Yeah, why not? Yeah, go for it. You might actually help me finish this book that I've been pining over for 3 bloody years. Right, question number 1. The Midnight Even song. Did anyone know what books we had going on there or what authors?
I've got Lee Child, but I don't know the other one.
It's the Reverend Richard Coles.
Absolutely, the Reverend Richard Coles. Lee Child with The Midnight Nine. You just mentioned Jack Reacher, and you know who that is, so that was a bit of a gimme. And Murder Before Even song, the new novel from Richard Coles. Question 2. A Good Girl's Guide to the Dome. David, I'm going to guess you've got one of these guys.
Yeah, one of them. I got Stephen King, and I threw in Victoria Dowd. I don't think it is, but she writes the Smart Women series, and Good Girls was pretty similar.
It was not a bad guess. Stephen King was correct, and the second author with A Good Girl's Guide to Murder was Holly Jackson.
Yeah.
Question number 3. Eleanor Oliphant Had It Coming. Anyone know either of the authors there? This was probably the trickiest out of the bunch.
I've bloody read it as well, but I can't remember who wrote it. Eleanor Oliphant. I wrote Linwood Barclay for the other one, but I don't think that's right either.
No, B.M. or Burr Carroll was the author of You Had It Coming, shortlisted for the Ned Kelly Award this year. And Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine was written by Gail Honeyman.
Of course it was.
Gail. Yeah, no.
Question number 4, Good Cop, Bad Dog.
That's a great title.
It was. Do you know how long it took me to find a suitable dog book to put with that one? It took a long time.
I got nothing on that.
I wrote Alex Shaw. I don't know if that's right.
No, Simon Koenig was the author of Good Cop, Bad Cop, which was Chris Getty. And the chasing down of the unstoppable cartel was Power of the Dog by Don Winslow.
Oh, really? I read that a while ago.
Yeah, 2008, 2009, I think that was.
Yeah,
quite a way back. And finally, Project Hail the King, Ryland Grace, and Heading to Mount Doom. So we all got the Mount Doom.
I got
surely.
Tolkien. I wrote James Patterson, but I don't know if that's right either.
Is it Andy something?
It is Andy something. It's Andy the Martian Weir. Yes, Project Hail Mary is his latest book.
Unlucky,
yeah.
David. I'm devastated for you.
Lord of the Rings, of course, shot in New Zealand, David, and you're from there. And tell me a little bit about growing up in New Zealand. What was it? What's it like over there?
I mean, I grew up in the 70s, so essentially, the old gag used to be for passengers arriving in New Zealand, just set your watches back to the 1950s, because essentially it was like a very sedate, polite version of what Britain used to be like.
I mean, it changed. People think that is the case.
No, it really isn't anymore. I mean, there's been waves of people have emigrated to New Zealand. Where a lot of people came from the Pacific Islands, which made it much more cosmopolitan. And then a lot of people left Fiji. A lot of Indians who were in Fiji had to get out of Fiji during the coups. And then a lot of people from Southeast Asia, so Korea and China and other nations out of Hong Kong. So as a consequence, I remember I went back one time. I went back to see my family, and I went, "Did we have dim sum bars when I left? I don't remember there being so many dim sum bars." So actually, it's a far more cosmopolitan and open-minded nation, I would say, than it certainly was when I was growing up, and all for the better as a consequence. Plus, also they now have a film industry, which they really did not have when I was growing up. There was one New Zealand got made every 3 years.
That is definitely the thing. I've got a couple of friends who've gone out down to New Zealand to work in the VFX industry, and they're doing exceptional stuff down there. It's definitely become one of the places to go in filmmaking, and that's a big thing over there. And Trevor, you're over in Canada at the moment. How does the life in Canada differ from the UK? How are you finding it over there at the moment?
Actually, it is similar to what David was saying. It's a very. I'm in Vancouver, which is an incredibly diverse city. I was at the Pride Festival this weekend, and it's just mind blowing how open this place is compared to England. I think the weather's pretty similar. It's been pretty hot lately, so we kind of coincided with the UK. Really, the heat came about at the same time. But it's a lovely multicultural city, Vancouver, and the country itself is astonishing. It's absolutely enormous with hardly any people. So if you go out into the sticks a bit, you can travel around for hours and not see anybody. But you will see a few bears and some raccoons and a moose or two.
I was going to say the wildlife. Have you had any close encounters while you're out there, or?
We've seen a load of deer, certainly, a few raccoons. Vancouver's not the best for the wildlife. I've lived over Toronto, Ottawa way before, and that had groundhogs, which are particularly cute, like cross between beavers and hedgehogs. They're really great. But
Bill Murray does beg to differ on that. Excellent stuff. Right, shall we move on to the next round?
Yeah, can't wait.
Well, you'll be glad to know, gentlemen, you two are the guinea pigs for a brand new round, which can only possibly go well. Only possibly go well. This round is called 5 Degrees of UKCBC. Now, some of you might be familiar with the concept of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, where it's supposedly possible to link every celebrity to Kevin Bacon via 6 steps. Well, we've got 5 degrees of UKCBC, where I link David Bishop on my right to Trevor Wood on my left in just 5 questions. Sounds easy?
No.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask 5 questions. The first question will link to David Bishop. The second question will link to the first answer. The third question will link to the second. The fourth will link to the third. The fifth will link to the fourth. And the fifth will also link to Trevor Wood. So you've got a little bit of clue on the first 2. And maybe you have to work backwards and forwards to fill in that link. Or maybe you get to question 2 and go, what on earth? This is a terrible idea, and don't ever do that again. It happens a lot. We shall begin. So your first clue obviously is David Bishop, so bear that in mind. It doesn't help because the clue's in the question. Question number 1. Name of the actor who played Bishop in Aliens. The android Bishop in Aliens.
Bringing the wonderful line, "Stay the hell away from me, Bishop."
Yes. Absolutely superb film. Of course, he also briefly appears in Alien 3 and does make appearance in Alien vs. Predator, but the less said about that, the better. Question 2. The actor above also appeared in Millennium, which was created by which writer, director, producer who also created The X-Files?
Oh, man.
And question 3 might help you if you're struggling on this. And if question 3 doesn't help you, then you're probably not going to get it. Question 2 again. The actor above, who played Bishop in Aliens, also appeared in Millennium, created by which writer, director, producer who also created The X-Files? Donna Morfitt with a once monthly WTF, man, which she says most months. You haven't minus figures yet. Question number 3. Now, the creator of The X-Files shares his name with the author of Hunting Evil, The Night Stalker, One by One, and The Crucifix Killer, famous crime author, originally hailing from Brazil, all of which feature which main character? A criminal behavioral psychologist turned detective in the homicide special section of the LA Robbery Homicide Division. Probably the hardest question in the lot, I would imagine.
Yeah, and he's also got amazing cowboy boots.
There you go.
Not that I know the answer to the question.
He does look super rock and roll, doesn't he? He was in a band as well. I say he looks rock and roll. He was in a band, I believe, before he became an author.
I was talking to him at Harrogate, and there was just this queue full of people waiting to get his signature. It was like,
oh wow,
bees to honey. Wow.
Yeah, he's a bit. He's kind of, I would say, one of the true rock stars of crime writing. Absolutely. So I know that David's cruising in this round.
It's concerning.
Didn't know that.
Question 3 again. The creator of The X-Files shares his name with the author of Hunting Evil, The Night Stalker, One by One, and The Crucifix Killer, all of which feature which main character? A criminal behavioral psychologist turned detective in the homicide special section of the LA Robbery Homicide Division. That's a mouthful. Taken straight from the website. Question 4. The character above shares the name of a musician who collaborated with Jerry Garcia to provide lyrics to songs including Dark Star, Ripple, and Trucking for which band?
Oh, okay.
It sounds like it's a hard question, but why not be? The character above shares the name of a musician who collaborated with Jerry Garcia to provide lyrics to songs including Dark Star, Ripple, and Trucking for which band?
I think I know what question 5 is going to be. Do I get an extra point? Fine.
I'll tell you what. Yeah, all right. If you can write down what the question is going to be here, what's going to be the final link, I will give you an extra point. But I'm absolutely trusting you here, Trevor.
I'm writing it down so I can hold it up.
Then we'll all know the answer.
Go on then.
Oh, you'll know the question. Okay, so Ian McShane, Timothy Oliphant, and Brad Dourif starred in which TV series, which ran for 3 seasons between 2004 and 2006, had a movie in 2019, and was set in 1870 South Dakota, and was loosely based on the story of a real town that shared its name with the show. What was the show?
Yeah, no, I didn't write that down.
I'll come back to you in a bit and ask you what you did write down.
Yeah, okay.
You might have the same answer. Question 5 again. Ian McShane, Timothy Oliphant, and Brad Dourif starred in which TV series, which ran for 3 seasons between 2004 and 2006, had a movie in 2019, and was set in 1870 South Dakota, loosely based on the story of a real town, and shared its name with the show. And then that moves nicely on to Trevor Wood. Whew. Gents, you've both got sailing and naval backgrounds, I understand. So, David, you told me you gathered yardarms of a tall ship 60 feet above the deck. What does any of that mean?
I was before I left New Zealand. I was involved with something called ARC, which was the At-Risk Kids Trust. So we took kids who were in vulnerable or dangerous situations, or who had difficulties, social difficulties, whatever it was, and took them away for activities, sort of outward bound activities. And one of the first ones that we did was we spent a week on a tall ship sailing around the North Island of New Zealand. So it was a tall ship, with rigs and masts and yard arms, and the top yard arm was 60 feet above the deck. And you put your feet onto a brace line, and then you basically on your stomach, and then you went on your stomach out along the yard arm to either gather up the sails or to untie the sails and lower them down. And all you had was your feet were on the brace cable underneath, which you put up. So basically, you were like Superman with your stomach on the thing, but that was it. So if you came off, health and safety, frankly, it was a nightmare. But yeah, the hardest part was, it wasn't so much the height, it was the fact that my glasses were too loose. And you would start to sweat quite a bit because you'd have to climb up the mast and then out along the yard arm, and my glasses kept sliding down. So I had to keep putting my glasses back on every. But yeah, so yes, that's. I'm not the world's best sailor, it has to be said, by any stretch. So life in the Navy was never going to be for me.
And talking about working within the community to help other people, Trevor, you work with the homeless in Newcastle, don't you? Tell me a little bit about what you do there to support.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, while I've been in Vancouver, I've had to miss that for a while. But usually every Tuesday afternoon, I wander down to the People's Kitchen in Newcastle and help to cook a 3-course meal plus a vegetarian option for 200 homeless people. We have 4 hours to do it. There are 3 chefs and a couple of assistants. So it's a bit frantic, but it's great fun.
I can imagine it's quite a hectic schedule to get that turned out in time. And does that sort of help feed into the writing? Because obviously, I can't help but draw the parallels between that and what you write about. Which came first there? Was it the interest in...
I started writing the book before I was volunteering there, but I'd been down to see the kitchen, and I tried to volunteer there, but something which is to the credit of the people of Newcastle is there's a waiting list, even though it's a volunteer place completely, and they've got probably about 150 people who volunteer there. But I had to wait for about 6 months, so I was well into the book before I actually started working there. But it has been really useful to get a lot of inside information about the people living on the street, really.
Yeah, and having spent 5 years in the northeast myself, it doesn't surprise me at all that there's that sort of
it's an amazing organisation. I mean, nobody gets paid at all from top to bottom. People who organise the transport, people who run the warehouses. It's an incredible organisation, really, and they don't even get any public funding. It's all by donation.
Yeah, super stuff. Gents, we will go through this round that has been called brutal, and I've been accused of being evil for doing it. But we'll gloss over that because I don't think it was like that. Right, we started with David Bishop, and our first step took us to the actor who played Bishop in Aliens. Did anyone remember his name?
I think David probably knows it by the sound of it, but my guess was Ian Holm, but I don't think that's right.
That was the wrong.
He was Ash in the first Aliens.
Yeah, I knew he was in it, but I didn't think he was the right one.
Yeah, it's Lance Henriksen.
Yes, well, that's absolutely correct. Yes. Question 2. Obviously, he was then in Millennium, which was created by which writer, director, producer, who also created famously The X-Files?
I did get this one. It's Chris Carter.
It is indeed Chris Carter, who also is an author from Brazil. Different Chris Carter, who created Hunting Evil, The Night Stalker, One by One, and The Crucifix Killer. Did anyone remember the name of his main character?
No, I don't know.
Tricky one, that one. It was Robert Hunter. Robert Hunter was the main character in that series, who shared his name with the lyricist who worked with Jerry Garcia of which band?
Grateful Dead?
Indeed, yes, it was the Grateful Dead. Now, before I get on to question 5, Trevor, what was your guess that I was going to ask about
that? Because of the word dead in the clue for the last one, I thought you were going to ask which band had a hit with Dead End Street.
That would have been a good, yeah, that would have been a good one. No, I just went for the more obvious Dead Wood, Trevor Wood.
Yeah, I got
yes. So Ian McShane, Timothy Oliphant, and Brad Dourif all starred in the TV series Deadwood, which was question number 5. That's going to take us. We've got no Deadwood here, so let's have a quick look at this score, shall we, gentlemen?
By my count, I've got 12 out of 25.
And I've
12
got,
out of 25.
and I've got
Trevor?
11.
11. So it's nice and close. There's a point here. And you two, actually, with your quizzing backgrounds, again, the similarities between you keep coming because you're both the first guest that I've had on, other than my first guest, Lisa, who's an actual egghead, who have been on actual TV quizzes. And not only have you both been on TV quizzes, David, you came up against the Queen of Mean and walked away victorious. How did that go?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was on the Weakest Link in 2008. I was shot at Pinewood. They were shooting Quantum of Solace at the 007 stage, which was next door, but apparently just second unit. Daniel wasn't there, so that was no use to us that day. It was an odd day out, I have to say. And the weird thing was in the stage, on the sound stage, because they have all the black curtains behind, and they had a black curtain enclosure where they kept Anne Robinson, where she would scuttle it back into any time there was a break in the action, so her writers could come up with new snarky comments for her to make it the various contestants in response to what was going on. Honestly, you expected her to be wheeled out on the trolley like Hannibal Lecter at the start.
As true professionals, don't get the chance to dodge off screen just to get people feeding us lines. This is all off the top of the head here, so Anne could learn a thing or two, I think. There, Trevor, your winning streak on TV was a prolonged one.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
I mean, it's a very little known and not particularly fondly remembered quiz show called Three Little Words. I was about 14, 15, I think. And I went on with my mum. And the object of the quiz was one partner is given a word and they have to transmit that word to their partner with a series of one-word clues. And they get 3 goes. And our very first word was given to my mum. And unbelievably, they gave her illegitimate. So my first appearance on national TV was with my mum shouting bastard across the studio to me. I mean, it worked. I got it right, but it was a bit of a shock at the time.
Well, at least you didn't say you.
But we,
that would have been interesting.
We won. I mean, we won 3 weeks in a row, but we filmed them all. They filmed one after another because obviously they've got people in the studio. So we did two on one day, and then one we had to go back and do another one, and that was the maximum you could win. So we got a magnificent video recorder, which was quite flash in those days.
Ooh, super stuff. Excellent. Well, quizzing royalty with us here today as we move into the last round. The pressure is on. David, obviously, with his criminal mastermind title weighing heavy round his neck at the moment. I hope he's not feeling too much pressure to defend that going into the last round, but we will soon find out. See who crumbles under the pressure of the hardest round of the lot. Not really. This is about as easy as it gets. This is general knowledge. General knowledge. And it's all stuff that's pretty recent. So if you remember July, you'll be fine. Absolutely fine. If you don't, sorry. Question number 1. Nice and easy. Which country was chosen to host the Eurovision after Ukraine were forced to drop out? Question number 1 again. Which country was chosen to host Eurovision after Ukraine were forced to drop out? Question number 2. Name the last 2 candidates left in the mudslinging contest that is the Tory leadership race. Let's name the last 2 candidates left in the Tory leadership race. Question number 3. Nichelle Nichols, who sadly passed at the age of 89 last month, was best known for playing which character in Star Trek? Yeah, you get 2 points for number 2. Sorry, that's a good question, Sam Brownlee. 2 points for number 2, 1 for each. Question number 3 again. Nichelle Nichols, sadly passed away at the age of 89 last month, was best known for playing which character in Star Trek? Question number 4. Which US politician caused controversy with a visit to Taiwan this week? Question 4 again. Which US politician caused controversy with a visit to Taiwan this week? And finally, tricky one, this one. I will give you a point if you're within 5 years either side, and I will give you 2 points if you're bang on the money. This July was the driest July in England since which year? Point if you're 5 years either side, 2 points if you get it bang on. So yeah, that's question number 5. July was the driest July in England since which year? Trevor, what's next for you in your writing while people get those final scores down?
I have got a standalone thriller called You Can Run, set in a remote Northumberland village, coming out in March next year.
Excellent stuff.
Copy edit's just finished, I think. I might get one more stab at it, but I think we're done.
Mm-hmm. Excellent stuff. That's a standalone thriller. And is there any plans for any more series in the future, or are you just wait to see what comes?
Yeah, I'm thinking about something at the moment. That's the last book of a 4-book contract. So I'm out of contract, but I think we're quite keen to carry on working with Quercus. My editor Jane Wood has been brilliant. So I've got to come up with a pitch that will convince her to offer me a new deal. But I've something I'm thinking on, but I've had some time out in Vancouver to kind of do a bit of research. So watch this space, I guess, Ben, is the
Excellent. So we will all watch with interest. David, what about yourself? What's the next plan for you?
Well, I've handed in book 3 of the Cesare Aldo series, and that is currently penciled in for May next year.
Yep.
And indeed, I'm just starting my second 2-book contract. So I'm now formulating plans for what will be book 4. My editor starts reading the 3rd Cesare Aldo book, I think on Monday, because he's been busy editing other people. Alex Saunders at PanMac is a great, but increasingly busy editor. He keeps popping up in the bookseller. He's acquired new books. I'm like, no, pay attention to me.
The great ones are always increasingly busy, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah. Well. Yeah. But no, he's got a very good eye, and so I'm count myself very lucky to be working with him. So I'm thinking about what book 4 is going to be, and then obviously we then see what happens after that.
Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Should we get the answers to this final round?
Okay.
Okay. Which country then is chosen to host Eurovision after Ukraine were forced to drop out?
It's England, isn't it?
It's the UK,
England, Great Britain, whatever you want to say, I'll accept it. Anything like that. Yes, UK, Great Britain, England, yeah, all good for me. Question 2, the last 2 candidates, point for each, left in the Tory leadership race, or race to the bottom.
Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss.
Yes, indeed, Rishi Sunak.
Form your own conclusion.
I was tempted to write something completely different there, but I didn't. I thought I need the points.
Yeah. We're a non-political page. Let's remember that. Yes, the race to the bottom continues in earnest. Question number 3. Nichelle Nichols. Who did she play in Star Trek?
I think it's Uhuru, isn't it? Lieutenant Uhuru?
Yeah, Lieutenant Noyota Uhura was Nichelle's character. Sadly passed away at the age of 89 last month. Which US politician caused controversy with her visit to Taiwan this week?
Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. And finally, this July was the driest July in England since which year?
What you got, David?
I've got 1931.
Oh, Jesus, I've got 1996. You're probably nearer.
David can have a point.
Oh, man.
He's only 4 years out there. 1935 is the correct answer. Yes, the driest July since 1935. Gents, tot up your scores. Ladies and gents watching at home, tot up your scores, and we shall see. Sorry, Patsy, I'm not following what you were saying there. Scotland, Edinburgh, Point Border, Bruce, Scotland. Yeah, I'm not quite following what you're saying there. So do explain that one too. Who wants to be the first to admit their scoreline?
I got 16.
16 for Trevor.
18.
And 18 for David, who is still the criminal mastermind. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. And before we disappear, where can people go to find out a little bit more about you both?
Go on, David, you
Trevor.
first.
Oh, okay. The website is dvbishop.com. So nice and straightforward. And I'm on Twitter. I'm at David Bishop is where I'm most active on the socials. Excellent
stuff. And Trevor, for yourself?
I spend most of my time on Facebook and Twitter, really. So you can get me on either of those. It's at Trevor Wood Wright, WRITE, on Twitter. You'll find me on Facebook easy enough, I think. I do have a website. I'm going to now struggle to remember what the address of it is. I think it's www.trevorwoodauthor, I think. But
yes, trevorwoodauthor.co.uk.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't use it that much.
I was going to say, it sounds like someone else is doing the web admin for you there.
Well, I do it, but I just can't be bothered with it, frankly. It's
one of the many author websites that is lost to posterity as many are. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Pleasure.
It's been wonderful to have you on. There's a few more scores coming in. Donna's got 2 points. He's put down 12. That's obviously 2. Sam's got 11. So, yeah, some great scores. Gentlemen, again, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen at home, thank you also for playing along. It's been wonderful having everyone with us. I've been Ben Bruce, and I will again be next month. Take care.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks.